Hello and namaste to all of you. Today in our UPSC GS series, we are doing the audio number 15 on state initiatives under the sustainable development. We have already covered what under state initiatives of the sustainable development, the point one introduction, legislative measures, and judicial interpretations. In this audio, we are doing institutional mechanisms and summary of the whole points covered in state initiatives of sustainable development. General instructions for students are the same, that they have to listen it very carefully with completely intuition and note down 10 words which they like most, and also they see the meaning in the dictionary of these words. Point 4, institutional mechanisms. The National Committee on Environmental Planning and Coordination, NCEPC, set up in 1972, was earlier the Apex Advisory Board relating to issues of environmental protection. In 1980, a separate Department of Environment was constituted with a mandate to plan, promote, and coordinate programs relating to the environment. A full-fledged Ministry of Environment and Forests (MOEF) was established in 1985 to oversee environmental protection measures at the national level. The MOEF, Ministry of Environmental and Forests, is the nodal agency at the central level of planning, promoting and coordinating, policy formulating, and environmental programs. The MEF has 6 regional offices across India to assist in its work. The wide functions dispensed by the MOEF include environmental policy formulation, ensuring implementation of environmental legislation, monitoring and control of pollution, eco-development, environmental research, education, training and awareness, forest conservation and wildlife protection, environmental clearance for industrial and development projects, etc. The ministry is accountable to the Parliament through its minister. In addition, state departments on environment and forests function at the state levels. The Central Pollution Control Board (CPCB) was constituted in 1974 as an implementing agency of the Water Act. Later, it was took on the implementation of the Air Act of 1981. The CPCB is a statutory body attached to the MOEF and is responsible for the prevention and control of industrial pollution. Its functions include technical research, information dissemination, training and awareness, establishing standards for air and water quality, and planning and executing programs for the prevention, control, and abatement of water and air pollution. State pollution control boards (SPCBs) perform similar functions at the state levels. The National Environment Appellate Authority (NEAA) was set up in 1997 to process complaints and appeals made against the decisions of competent authorities established under the EPA. A new institutional setup is envisaged for conservation issues under the Biodiversity Act of 2002, comprising a national biodiversity authority, state biodiversity boards, and biodiversity management committees. Various other autonomous institutions set up by the MEF and other independent government organizations also contribute to environmental protection initiatives. Technical and research bodies such as the Zoological Survey of India (JSI), Botanical Survey of India (BSI), Indian Institute of Forest Management (IIFM), Indira Gandhi National Forest Academy IJNFA, Forest Research Institute FRI, Wildlife Institute of India WII, Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education ICFRE, and National Environmental Engineering Research Institute NEERI provide background research and inputs to the environmental law and policy making process. Pursuant to the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendments of 1992, municipalities and panchayats have also been given a larger role to play in environmental management. Panchayats are responsible for land improvement, soil conservation, water management, social and farm forestry, etc. Municipalities Municipalities are responsible for issues such as urban and town planning, solid waste management, urban forestry, and ecological aspects of urban development. Apart from the official institutions and agencies dealing with environmental protection, India has witnessed a spurt in the growth of NGOs dedicated to various aspects of environmental protection. These NGOs perform important functions, often acting as a link between the people and the government machinery. The role of NGOs in India is discussed later. Insofar as the socio-economic development is concerned, the issues are region specific and manifest at the regional or community level. The initiatives taken by the Indian government are discussed in detail in the subsequent units. Summary of the various points. India's participation in almost all the significant global treaties for environmental protection, as well as its enactment of a comprehensive body of environmental law and policy, display the keen interest it has in being a part of environmental protection initiatives. India is one of the few countries of the world where environment finds an explicit mention in the constitution itself. Although not guaranteed as a fundamental right, environment has acquired the status of a right by being recognized as an integral component of the right to life by the higher judiciary in judicial decisions spanning over the last 2 decades. There is also an elaborate network of environmental institutions to deal with various issues. However, there exists a, a chasm between what is provided for and what finds translation into reality. The Indian initiative is yet to realize its full potential and will require a renewed focus on implementation issues. Next unit, Unit 10, Regional Initiatives. Under this regional initiatives, Unit 10 of Sustainable Development, we have to cover introduction. That means what is regional initiatives, mean what is the role of region. Point 2, initiatives by regional organizations. Number 3, SAARC initiatives, SAARC initiatives. Number 4, institutional mechanisms, and at the last, summary of the all points of the regional initiatives from the sustainable development. Number 1, introduction. Environmental protection entails cooperation at all levels of global society. Many environmental problems transcend national boundaries and require technologies and resources that countries may not individually possess. Also, some problems are by nature limited in scope and impact to a particular region and are therefore not best addressed by international law. It is to bridge this gap that the body of regional environmental law has evolved. This unit introduces the relevance of regional cooperation towards environmental protection. It takes a brief look at the regional initiatives in various regional arrangements around the world. Admittedly, Admittedly, the largest initiative at the regional level has been that in the European region. Has been that in the European region. There is a strong case for regional cooperation in the South Asian regional as well as this call is directed at the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation SARC members. Some of the initiatives taken under the SARC framework, though limited in nature, are discussed in this unit. Regional mechanisms are effective means for addressing transboundary issues such as atmospheric pollution and pollution of shared rivers and water bodies, which nations are unable to solve by themselves. Moreover, certain environmental problems are peculiar to certain regions. It is difficult to evolve a common environmental program for all countries of the world, which are at different levels of development, have varying levels of responsibility for environmental degradation, and have different carrying capacities. Regional agreements involve fewer transnational transactional costs, are less time taking, and have higher chances of success. For instance, when not all countries were satisfied with the negotiation of a global agreement on the transboundary movement of hazardous wastes, Basel Convention of 1989, regional responses to hazardous waste trade were evolved which were more acceptable and effective. Even if the environmental problem at issue is not transboundary, countries located in geographical proximity are likely to face similar problems, and a cooperative arrangement helps member countries to learn from each other's experiences in combating their national environmental problems. Regional arrangements are also helpful in cons- in consolidating consolidating a common stand on particular environmental issues at international negotiations. Regional organizations can monitor and support both global and national initiatives. For example, a series of conventions on regional seas has grown from the United Nations Even Regional Seas Program. These regional arrangements support and are consistent with the Global Even Convention on the Law of Seas, even CLOS, Even Convention on the Law of the Seas, even clause. Regional agreements serve as ideal theaters for implementing environmental principles and testing them for potential effective implementation at other levels, being in other words laboratory for cultivating solutions to international issues. Point 2. Initiatives by regional organizations. The European Union (EU) represents a success story of regional cooperation in the field of environmental protection. The Treaty of Rome 1957 establishing the European Economic Community (EEC) made no explicit reference to environment. So the primary aim of EEC as embodied in Article 2 of the Rome Treaty was of promoting economic growth. The Single European Act 1986 SEAC formally introduced environmental policy within the scope of the Rome Treaty. The development of community environmental policies began in 1972, and since then a large body of directives, regulations and decisions has been developed. The environmental principles enforced by the EU include the preventive principle, subsidiarity, subsidiarity principle, integrative principle, polluter pays principle, etc. In 1992, the Maastricht Treaty amended Article 2 of the Treaty of Rome, placing environmental concerns alongside economic growth. Article 2 of Rome Treaty now provides for sustainable growth respecting the environment. There is no hierarchical distinction between the two objectives. Community environmental policy today comprises over 300 legislative acts relating to all aspects of environment. Directives are the principal legislative instruments mandating the achievement of a result, but leaving it to the member state as to how it will do so. The European Court of Justice has also contributed significantly to the creation of the community environment doctrine by gradually establishing and expanding the community's claim over environmental matters. Community jurisdiction now extends to directives on atmospheric pollution, wildlife protection, bathing water quality, etc. Thus, EU quite explicitly incorporates environmental concerns. The North American Free Trade Agreement 1994, NAFTA, NAFTA, creating a free trade area encompassing Mexico, Canada, and US, has a strong environmental component. NAFTA NAFTA explicitly addresses certain trade related aspects of domestic and international environmental regulation. Parties are encouraged to utilize the revenues from trade and economic growth to enforce their substantive environmental standards more effectively. The NAFTA NAFTA text itself integrates certain environmental considerations into its text. Also, environmental concerns are addressed separately in a side agreement. The North American Agreement on Environmental Cooperation NAAEC environmental concerns have been central to NAFTA since its inception. The preamble of NAFTA NAFTA expressly recognizes environmental objectives. There is a specific provision in the NAFTA extending protection to certain listed MEAs such as the Basel Convention and CITES. NAFTA also prohibits parties from lowering their environmental standards to attract investments. NAAEC commits NAFTA NAFTA parties to a series of obligations to advance the environmental sustainability of NAFTA NAFTA related trade. NAAEC is primarily concerned with effective enforcement of domestic environmental law in each party and creation of new institutional arrangements for cooperation between them. Within the framework of the Association for Southeast Asian Nations (ASEAN) ASEAN, numerous environmental legal instruments, agreements, and declarations have been adopted. These include agreements on transboundary hedge pollution, conservation of nature and natural resources, environment and development, sustainable development, heritage parks and reserves, and the ASEAN environment in general. Working groups have been set up on MEAs, nature conservation and biodiversity, and coastal and marine environment. A regional haze action plan was adopted at ASEAN and 2003 has been designated the Environment Year. Apart from the above mentioned, environmental protection is an item on the agenda of numerous other regional organizations around the world. As mentioned earlier, these regional initiatives not only deal with regional problems but also strengthen the efforts at implementation of international and national environmental law and policy. Point 3. SAARC initiatives. SAARC initiatives. The Indian subcontinent is a distinct geographical unit with well-defined boundaries. The Himalayas in the north is shared by four countries, namely India, Pakistan, Nepal, and Bhutan, with common rivers, watershed areas, mountains, and parameters like soil, climate, and vegetation. Deforestation of watershed areas in one country can lead to floods and soil erosion in the downstream country. The Indian Ocean in the south is shared by five countries: India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Bangladesh, that form the boundaries of the region. These countries share the common marine environment. Disaster proneness, a distinguishing feature of the South Asian region in its proclivity to natural disasters. The region is at the mercy of the vagaries of the monsoons. Bangladesh and India are amongst the most flood prone areas on earth and are also frequently affected by drought. Landslides affect the Himalayan regions of Pakistan, India, Nepal, and Bhutan. Cyclones frequent the region and because of the peculiar geographical factors cause a high intensity of damage to life and property. Maldives is threatened by rise in sea level due to global warming. The Indian subcontinent, being situated on the boundary of two continental plates, is prone to earthquakes. The occurrence of natural disasters is accompanied by human vulnerability resulting from overpopulation, poverty, and inequality. Yet, yet conspicuous yet conspicuous by its absence is an adequate natural disasters planning or management system. History. SAARC countries also share a common history. They share a set of historically determined socio-economic characteristics that resulted from their experiences with colonial rule. Having undergone colonial exploitation, they have more or less similar problems like poverty, depleted natural resources, low levels of technological development and skills, etc. Socio-economic conditions. SAARC countries comprise 20% of the world's population, living on 3.5% of the total land area and generating only 2% of the world's GNP. These socio-economic conditions create enormous pressures on the natural environment of the region. Environmental protection is doubly important in this region because of the high level of poverty and the fact that a vast majority of the population depends directly on the environment to meet its needs. The resource to population ratio is extremely low, which suggests that exploitation of resources at unsustainable levels is inevitable. culture. The SAARC region has a history and tradition of conservation, environment-friendly lifestyles, great respect for plants, animals, as well as an attitude of living in harmony with them. Based on the above mentioned commonalities, the the identifiable common environmental concerns of the countries in the South Asian region include land degradation, deforestation, water availability and quality, atmospheric pollution, marine and coastal pollution, loss of biodiversity, population explosion, and concentration in a few areas, development related displacement, etc. Considering how much the SAARC countries share in common, a strong case emerges in favor of regional cooperation for environmental protection. SAARC countries stand to gain from a regional environmental mechanism. It is necessary envisage envisage and concertize some coordination and cooperation in the areas of law and policy in the field of environment. They have common and interlinked problems that can be better addressed by the countries together than individually. They have much to learn from each other. Also, SAARC countries need a stronger voice at international fora so that the emerging international environmental law incorporates their interests with the weight of the regional organization behind it. Even the smaller members of SAARC can have their voice heard at international fora. The SAARC Charter takes cognizance of the common problems, interests, and aspirations of the peoples of South Asia and the need for joint action and enhanced cooperation. The SAARC Charter, however, includes no specific mention of environmental protection objectives. The only inference that can be drawn of any such intentions is from the objective of promotion of the welfare of the peoples of South Asia and improvement of their quality of life. The Charter talks of promotion of collaboration and mutual assistance in the economic, social, cultural, technical, and scientific fields with no mention of the environmental field. SAARC countries have acknowledged, however, that cooperation in the field of environment under the SAARC framework is crucial, considering that the environmental problems in the area are common and interlinked. But concrete action in this direction is yet to be taken. A collective effort for protecting the region's environment was first discussed at the third summit meeting of SAARC in Kathmandu 1987. Deep concern was expressed at the fast and continuing degradation of the environment and the affliction of natural disasters, which gravely undermined the development process and prospects of member countries. It was decided that regional cooperation in this direction should be undertaken and a group of experts was constituted to prepare a draft study in the field of environment. The group met in July 1988 in Kathmandu and sought to identify areas of national priority requiring further action and of common areas of regional concern. In the fourth summit meeting in 1988 in Islamabad, there was a renewed determination to strengthen disaster management capabilities. A fallout of earthquakes in eastern India, floods in Bangladesh, and cyclones in Bangladesh and India. Also, the need was felt to study the greenhouse effect on South Asia, with five of the seven member states vulnerable to sea level rise. In the 1990 Male Summit, in the 1990 Malay Summit, it was declared that 1992 would be observed as SARC year of the environment. The regional study of greenhouse effect and its impact on the region, and the regional study on the causes and consequences of natural disasters and the protection and preservation of the environment were completed in 1992. The first study made various recommendations for regional and global cooperation. The latter forms the basis for concrete program in the future. Its final recommendations include: number first, measures to protect and preserve the environment. Number two, measures to strengthen disaster management capabilities. And number three, implementing mechanisms or recommendations. The study suggested inter alia that scientific capabilities of member states must be shared and developed, and that members should cooperate through exchange of experiences, information, technology, expertise, etc. It also suggested programs of joint research and regional action and cooperation on environmental issues in international fora. It recommended measures to strengthen disaster management capabilities, including networking of institutions, establishment of a SARC relief and assistance mechanisms for disasters, development of modern disaster warning systems, a regional research program, and regional information exchange system in disaster management. The regional study is the most productive result of the SARC initiative on environment. But despite comprehensive recommendations, nothing concrete has taken place in the direction of regional approach to environmental management. In the Dhaka meeting in 1992, a committee on environment was set up to: number first, examine the recommendations of the study; number two, identify measures for immediate action; and number three, decide on the modalities of implementation. In summit meetings thereafter, the need for concerted action has been expressed repeatedly, but nothing substantial has come out of it. The recommendations of the study have not been implemented as yet. The SARC environment ministers who met in Male in October 1997 formulated an environment action plan for the implementation of the recommendations contained in the two studies. Progress on the action plan was reviewed in 1998 at the 10th meeting in Colombo. 1998 early implementation of the SARC Environment Action Plan was called for, and members committed to prepare national environment action plans and state of the environment reports. SARC environment ministers have been meeting at regular intervals. When they met in Colombo in 1998 for their fourth annual conference, they adopted a common environment program for the region as a follow-up on the SARC action plan on the environment. The Sri Lankan president called for a regional approach to translate good intentions into concrete action to harness the energies and capabilities of the region and to strengthen national efforts. Several meetings of expert groups were planned on various aspects of the environment to evolve a common approach for access to genetic resources, conservation of biodiversity, transboundary movement of hazardous wastes, etc. Networking and disaster preparedness were given high priority. The Technical Committee on Environment, set up under the SARC framework, has studied topics such as approaches to environmental legislation, regulations, and standards in SARC countries, rehabilitation of degraded lands, It has also recommended training courses and workshops on environmental issues. Steps have also been taken towards consolidating a SAARC stand in international environmental fora. SAARC ministers met at New Delhi in April 1992 to decide their stand at United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, even CED. The New Delhi conference resulted in the issuance of a communique which outlined the common policy of the SAARC states on issues before the UNCED. This was the first successful exercise in intra-SAARC consultations and coordination for an international conference. The SAARC ministers also met in April 1997 to consolidate a common SAARC position before the United Nations General Assembly, a special session, even GASS in 1997. Such meetings have now become a regular feature of SAARC, so a will to cooperate on environmental matters is now visible at the SAARC level. Point 4. Institutional mechanisms. Towards the enforcement of the process of sustainable development, several institutes were established at the regional level in the Asia Pacific area. South Asian Preferential Trade Agreement SAPTA SAPTA. The South Asian Preferential Trade Agreement was enforced in December 1995 by the members of SAARC. This was an attempt to strengthen regional trade links in the South Asian region and to initiate the developmental process in the countries, especially Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, and Maldives, which are considered the least developed nations. Till date, there have been 3 rounds of trade negotiations and trade concessions were offered on goods and services, beginning with 226 commodities in the first round. Trade concessions increased to 3,456 commodities in the third round of negotiations. Asian Development Bank ADB. The Asian Development Bank was established after a resolution was passed on economic cooperation by the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific ESCAP in 1965. Its goals include number 1, promoting economic growth, number 2, reducing poverty, number 3, improving the status of women, number 4, development of human resources, number 5, bringing out management of natural resources and environment. The bank, number 1, provides loans and equity investments for the economic and social development for its members. Number 2, provides technical assistance for developmental projects. Number 3, promotes public and private capital investment for development. United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific ESCAP. The United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific ESCAP was established in March 1947 and promotes social and economic development in Asia and the Pacific region. Its main goals include number 1, trade policy and promotion, number 2, industry and technology, number 3, rural development, number 4, environment and natural resource management, number 5, communications. The Commission has set up several institutions for the realization of these goals, like the Asia Pacific Center for Transfer of Technology APCTT and the Regional Coordination Center for Research Development of Coarse Grains, Pulses, Roots and tuber crops in humid tropics of Asia and the Pacific CGPRT. Asia Pacific Center for Transfer of Technology (APCTT). It was established in 1977 for facilitating transfer of technology in the Asia Pacific region. It has two areas of activities. Number one, development to strengthen technological capabilities. Number two, facilitate technology transfer services to business contracts. Its main focus is on the development of environmentally sound technologies (ESTs) for sustainable development and also of the small and medium scale enterprises. It has been successful in implementing several developmental projects, organizing several training programs, and bringing about technology transfer agreements between several countries. Regional Coordination Center for Research Development of Coarse grains, pulses, roots and tuber crops in humid tropics of Asia and the Pacific (CGPRT). Established in April 1981, CGPRT is a subsidiary body of ESCAP. The center provides the member countries with technical services and facilities for enhancement of production, utilization, and trade of these crops. It strengthens the research and development activities towards solving the problems of food scarcity and unemployment in the Asia Pacific region. Summary of the all points covered in Unit 10. It is clear that cooperation at the regional level has a unique value in addressing environmental concerns. There are certain environmental problems that are best tackled through regional cooperation. They cannot be effectively addressed otherwise. Many of the regional arrangements such as EU, NAFTA, NAFTA, and ASEAN (ASEAN) have a prominent component of cooperation for environmental protection. In the South Asian region, there is a clear-cut case for regional cooperation considering the commonality of environmental problems in the region. However, the SARC initiatives so far falls short of any meaningful gains as it has been limited to academic exercises. There is an urgent need for SARC to strengthen cooperation in this field. Environmental issues must be recognized as potential security concerns as they have the potential to escalate into political disputes. The material damage and loss of life resulting from natural disasters, the social dislocation caused by development activities, and the ensuing political unrest place the environmental issue in the center stage of national politics in the region. So, an attention to environmental protection is central to the well-being of SARC. At the international level, it must be ensured that the special concerns of the SARC countries are incorporated in the growing body of law. The current trend of meetings among environment ministers to decide a common stand in international fora is a healthy trend and must be encouraged. It must be remembered that in many conventions, environmental protection has constituted a common objective and a uniting factor among countries otherwise opposed to each other on political issues. So, cooperation in the field of environment, apart from addressing the environmental problems of the region, may also be a good place to start the process of promoting regionalism. Now, in next audio number 16, we will do global initiatives. Okay, thank you.